The deputy warden slammed the prisoner's face into a steel table and called it training. The guards laughed, the cameras hummed, and the room smelled like bleach and victory. Seconds later, they learned who he really was. The humiliation began in the least photogenic corner of the prison, the laundry mezzanine above the industrial washers, where heat rose in wet waves and lint drifted like ash. The racist deputy warden had picked the spot on purpose. No sunlight, no visitors, just clanging drums and hissed laughter swallowed by steam. He made the men line up with damp pant legs and raw hands, and he ordered the cameras repositioned so they would catch every flinch. He pushed the black prisoner forward with 2 fingers on the back of his neck, casual and proprietary, like testing the ripeness of a peach. The floor was grated steel, slick with humidity, and the man's palms brushed the diamond pattern as he caught himself. The deputy warden didn't shout. He performed, chewing a peppermint, rolling it from one cheek to the other, savoring control. "Tell us your lies," he said. "Tell us why you cried into discipline reports and why the intake nurse wrote non-compliant. Tell us why men like you always have a story." The washers boomed. The guard at the catwalk rail leaned in, thumb hovering over the panic button he'd never once pressed for a prisoner. 3 other guards drifted closer, their boots leaving wet moons on the metal. The black man lifted his gaze. He didn't blink. "You want the handcuffs off?" the deputy warden asked. "Let's see how brave you act without jewelry. Hands on the table." He shoved him again, face near the cold lip of a stainless prep bench dragged from the kitchen for the theater of it. "Look at that mirror finish," he murmured, admiring his own reflected smirk. "Look at what you are." No one moved to stop him. That was the point. The man placed his hands where he was told. He didn't argue. He didn't plead. He looked at the deputy warden as if watching a storm choose which field to break. Somewhere a washer locked and whined. Steam crawled higher. A guard coughed and grinned and pretended it wasn't nerves. "Name?" the deputy warden demanded, though he knew it. He wanted the music of compliance. "Isaiah Cole," the man said. The deputy warden smirked deeper. He lifted Isaiah's chin with 2 knuckles, a gesture learned from old movies and bad mentors. "You've run out of places to hide, Cole. Today we play my version of the truth." The room went still. "Say you're sorry for the mess you've made," the deputy warden said. "Say you wasted everyone's time with complaints and paranoia. Say it into the lens." Isaiah did nothing. "Say it," the deputy warden repeated, sweeter now. Isaiah breathed in once, like counting to 3 at the edge of a shallow pool. He exhaled slow. The washers pounded. A bead of water hung from the catwalk and fell, small and perfect, onto the back of his hand. "On the table," the deputy warden hissed. "Face down." Metal met cheekbone with a flat kiss of cold. He held Isaiah there, an elbow atop the skull, 2 fingers drumming a rhythm that meant, "I own this place." He flicked his eyes at the camera operator to tighten the frame. He waited for the chorus he liked best, snickers, a whistle, the chorus of fear disguised as entertainment. It came right on cue. They had no idea who he really was. The intake had been smooth because Isaiah let it be. You learn to move with the current when the river is shallow and the rocks are mean. He knew the script the moment he saw the deputy warden's shoes, polished like a sermon, wide like a shovel, planted a little too perfectly for a man comfortable in his own authority. He'd been booked on contempt tied to a federal hearing, paperwork that would be undone in days, maybe hours, once the court clerk corrected a clerical misfire. He could have called a name that would open doors. He chose not to. Some lessons need the quiet of a closed room. Some truths arrive best when they're not announced by trumpets. Isaiah kept his breath on a low metronome. In for 4, hold for 2, out for 6. Years ago, that cadence steadied rookies when their hands shook and the coffee was cold. Years ago, he taught men with powerful jobs how to listen harder than they talked. He had taught them that a question was a hand you offered, not a fist. A memory stepped near, then stepped back, polite and loyal. A classroom at Quantico with a semicircle of chairs and a whiteboard where he'd written, "Rapport is policy for the soul." He had stood in shirt sleeves and told agents the simplest rule: if you have to humiliate someone to learn the truth, you've already decided to lie to yourself. Now he was here. By choice, he told himself. By discipline. By a faith that a room can change when one person refuses to surrender his center. He glanced at the camera and the red LED crying attention. He noticed the missing placard, the one that should have warned about recording without counsel present during administrative procedures. Chain of custody, he thought, a phrase like a weight in his pocket. Access log, retention schedule. He filed it all away. Tick, one beat of silence, then two. He didn't look at the deputy warden again. Not yet. Microhook, he counted the peppermint. The deputy warden liked audiences the way old boxers liked ropes, something to lean on while pretending it was force. He called over 2 trainees from the kitchen's back corridor, had them stand close enough to smell the damp denim of Isaiah's jumpsuit. Lesson 1, he told the kids who would one day sign other men's fates. A liar will search for dignity like a dog searches for its vomit. Your job is to keep him where he belongs. The cruelty floated. Laughter caught it. A maintenance man looked up from a wheezing dryer and then away. The guard at the rail, she had a constable's jaw and a wedding ring she spun when angry, shifted twice and then planted her feet as if rooting them absolved her. One of the new COs cleared his throat like he might speak, then remembered rent and the way supervisors could make a man shin deep in paperwork until he drowned. I asked you, the deputy warden said, voice smooth as cafeteria gravy, to apologize for troubling my staff with your delusions. Silence spread like a stain. Isaiah imagined a chalk line on a training floor, choice on one side, habit on the other. He held still. He remembered a rookie's palm slick with fear in an interview room years ago, and how he tapped a pencil twice, once for patience, once for mercy. Tell me about the fight you started in Holding, the deputy warden went on, fabricating as if memory were a coin he could mint with his face on it. In Holding, Isaiah said gently, Officer Rourke shoved a detainee in front of me and asked if I wanted to graduate. I told him he was confusing discipline with spectacle. Then I picked up the man he shoved. Laughter wavered, thin as plastic in heat. The deputy warden smiled with no mirth in it. You challenging me in my house? This is the state's house, Isaiah said. You're just the janitor with keys. The washers thudded like a slow heartbeat. The deputy warden rolled the peppermint to the left. That's your last sentence until I allow the next. He snapped at the camera. Keep rolling. He nodded to a trainee. Bring me the black hood. A ripple ran through the air. Even the guard at the rail blinked. The black hood was for transports when spitting was a risk, or for riot protocol when chemicals burned. It was not for this. It was not for show. The rules were clear. He liked to pretend they weren't. A bystander, laundry detail, old enough to be someone's grandfather, took half a step forward. Sir, he said, voice careful, policy says I don't need your policy, the deputy warden snapped. The old man flinched, then stilled. Courage had spent itself, and fear asked the bill to wait for payday. Microhook. Rules can change, the deputy warden murmured, when a man earns it. On the far wall, the red LED kept its wordless watch. Isaiah watched it back. A door opened at the bottom of the stairs, a door used more by carts than by authority. From it rose 3 people. The prison's compliance officer, a woman in a navy blazer with a pen that clicked too often, a state inspector who had the exhausted eyes of a man who said we'll look into it for a living, and behind them a visitor who didn't belong to anyone's usual rounds. He wore no badge on his belt. He carried no clipboard. He moved with the quiet certainty of someone who'd chosen silence until it worked harder than noise. His gray hair was cropped short. His shoes were scuffed. His tie was old academy blue. The compliance officer froze. The inspector forgot the next step and recovered with a hand on the rail. The visitor climbed until the wet heat found his face and fogged his glasses. He took them off, wiped them with the hem of his coat, and looked once at the deputy warden, once at the camera, once at the table where Isaiah's cheek cooled. Deputy Warden Hale, he said, calm as a rain tarp. Let him up. Hale sneered. Who the hell are you walking into, my? The visitor turned slightly so the camera would catch him and spoke not to Hale but to the lens, to the policy that lens represented in the court it would one day answer. My name is Samuel Duarte, he said. Assistant Director, Office of Law Enforcement Oversight, Eastern Region, and the man you're pressing into that table trained my top interrogators years ago. Isa, Agent Cole. He corrected himself with a small smile that belonged to another time. I'm sorry, old habits. Silence landed like a verdict. The guard at the rail exhaled a curse she kept to herself. One of the trainees dropped the hood. It hit the grate with a thud like a soft hammer. The maintenance man said, "Oh," and then "oh," again, as if the second could cancel the first. Isaiah lifted his head slowly, not to savor the moment, but to keep it from breaking. He stood, wiped the line the steel had drawn on his cheek, and looked at Hale. He did not gloat. He did not raise his voice. He allowed a half second for the room to feel itself. Please step back from the prisoner, Duarte said. He didn't need to shout. Deactivate the camera and secure the footage. Chain of custody begins now. Compliance officer, note time of contact, and the presence of the transport hood in an unauthorized non-transport setting. The room went still. Hale hesitated, not because he wanted to do right, but because the map in his head suddenly showed a canyon he hadn't planned for. Then he spat. This is my facility. Even while his hands obeyed orders his mouth wasn't ready to admit existed. Isaiah glanced at the trainees, at the old laundry worker, at the guard at the rail. He had taught men to read faces. He read these now. Fear, relief, shame, curiosity. He nodded once, tiny, to the guard who had almost spoken. Her ring stopped spinning. Microhook. No one laughed. Duarte didn't handle it like television justice. He handled it like paperwork that mattered. He had the camera handed off to the inspector who bagged it, sealed it, signed the scene with his tired pen. He asked for the access log and read it with the boredom of a man who knew boredom was the cost of getting truth to stick. He told the compliance officer to print the hood policy and bring it up to the catwalk so everyone could see the highlighted line, only during transport or imminent safety threat. He didn't make a speech. He made a plan. Deputy Warden Hale, he said, effective immediately, you're relieved of supervisory control of inmate-facing training. You'll report to administrative review this afternoon. Sergeant Elkins will assume interim oversight under watch of compliance. He said it like reading the weather, simple, inevitable, not interested in argument. Hale's jaw worked like a man chewing a nail. You don't walk into my laundry and... This is the people's laundry, Duarte said mildly, and we're done playing games that pretend humiliation is an interrogation technique. He turned to Isaiah. You all right? I am, Isaiah said. Are the men in holding? We'll see them, Duarte said. We'll see all of them. He glanced at the guard at the rail. Officer Vega, right? You've raised flags about this training before. Thank you for your service. I'll need a statement. Vega's chin lifted. Something uncoiled in her shoulders. Yes, sir. Hale looked at her like a traitor. She returned nothing. Her wedding ring stayed where it was. The reversal didn't arrive as cheering. It arrived as details that outlived applause. A trustee with dishwater gray hair carried up a fresh tray from the kitchen and set it gently where the steel had kept its cold. No words, just a gesture, like a door held in a storm. A clerk from records hustled onto the mezzanine holding a manila folder, cheeks pink with apology. They put your intake sheet in the wrong queue, she told Isaiah, eyes skittering away from his. It's corrected. The old laundry worker sagged onto a stool and put his head in his hands, then straightened, then nodded at nothing in particular. The trainees looked at the fallen hood as if it had grown teeth. Duarte walked Hale to the stairs without touching him. You know what this is, he said quietly. You learned it once and unlearned it because it made your fun too expensive. Hale stared at the far wall as if there were a door there only he could see. Men like him, he muttered, and Duarte's face changed in the way a sky changes before a front moves through. No louder, only more certain. It's 2025, Duarte said, and that sentence never worked. Not in my house, not in yours. By late afternoon, the policy bulletin was posted in the mess line and the chapel foyer and the door of the greenhouse classroom where volunteers taught men to coax tomatoes from stubborn soil. It read, "Effective immediately, the department reaffirms that dignity is a non-negotiable precondition for any procedure. Coercive humiliation drills are prohibited. Violations will be treated as falsification of records and abuse of authority." No fanfare, just ink. The kind that stains long. Hale packed his office like a man moving through water. A box, a photo, a mug that had lied for years about who he was in the world. Transfer pending review. Pay docked. Title frozen, his peppermint jar empty. Microhook. In the greenhouse, someone watered soil that would answer in time. Let me tell you this, the way old men tell it, when the day has burned down to blue and the cicadas make their small engines hum. Respect isn't what you wring from the weak or tack to your door with a title. Respect is a habit, 1,000 quiet choices made when you imagine no one will keep the ledger. A deputy warden made a stage out of steel and steam and asked an audience to laugh with him. He learned that memory carries more ink than swagger. A retired FBI interrogator, retired, but not done, stooped to a table and did not trade dignity for safety. He didn't win by shouting. He didn't win by breaking the room. He won by standing exactly where he was until the room remembered its own center. If you want the lesson, it's simple and it's heavy. Respect doesn't come from titles. It comes from how you treat people when you think no one's watching. The laundry went quiet. The camera slept in a sealed bag. Somewhere a door opened with an ordinary click that sounded, at last, like a room taking its first full breath. Then footsteps, measured, unhurried, walked away into the light pooling beneath the greenhouse glass.